brother sibling movie.
Welcome, friends and chosen family, to Brother Sibling Movie, a podcast where two siblings, that's us, talk about movies we love from our childhood, and some we may be discovering for the very first time. I'm your brother, Evan Kerna.
And I'm your sibling, Mare Morgan.
And we've got a classic movie to talk about this week. But first, it's a new season. And you know what that means. A new theme that ties the next 10 movies all together in a big, nice gift wrap bow.
Gift wrapped for you, our listeners. So yes, each season we pick a new theme that centers kind of our movie picks around. And we have got an absolute amazing theme for you this go around, which is Revisionist Fairy Tales. Season 3, Revisionist Fairy Tales. Brr, 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 brr.
Bam, 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 or should it be bam, 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 but done with like a classical like violin or maybe like a lute or something?
Yeah. We'll input some Bridgerton music here.
Perfect. Yeah, it's everything that we need. So films, revisionist fairy tales, films that play with the tropes and conventions of classic fairy tales and somehow reinterpret or bend those rules in some fun or interesting ways. Morality tales with a tinge of the supernatural, updated for adults or maybe remixed for a new era. I think this is going to be a lot of fun to see what modern filmmakers have done with classic tales and how they've reinterpreted them.
Absolutely. And so to start off this first episode of the season of Revisionist Fairy Tales, we thought, what a better way to start than with the classique Edward Scissorhands. This is Tim Burton's 1990 masterpiece about a sad goth boy who can't hug anyone.
His hands are too sharp.
His hands are sharp, and he just wants to hug, and he just wants love, but he can't because it hurts. Because hands are blades.
He's sad emo boy. Let's talk about a little bit of a summary. We're changing things up a little bit this season with a world getting taken over by AI, which seemingly can't be stopped.
Yeah, fuck you, AI.
So in an attempt to move away from being reliant on generative AI, we want to switch it up and read summaries of these movies from LetterBoxd or IMDb this season. So we found a great little write-up from a user on IMDb that I think encapsulates the general everything of this movie.
I love it. And you know what? We'll just say, ChatGPT, thank you for your service, but you're no longer needed.
This is from IMDb from user Ahmet Kozon. Ahmet Kozon. Edward has all the essential ingredients for today's standard body, with the exception of a pair of hands. For what is initially thought to be a temporary period, he is fitted with long, scissor-like extremities that, while able to trim a mean hedge, are hardly conducive to day-to-day life. When the kindly inventor dies, however, Edward is left lonely and cursed with some very heavy metal for hands. He is eventually taken in by Peg Boggs, played by Diane Weist, an Avon lady who takes pity on him after seeing his bleak existence. Edward, in spite of his inherent ability to slay anyone he comes across, is a gentle soul whose only wish is to be loved. His impromptu family has, at best, a limited understanding of Edward, but he finds himself drawn to Peg's weary but sympathetic daughter, Kim, played by Winona Ryder, who is dating Jim, played by Anthony Michael Hall, the neighborhood bully. Meanwhile, Edward finds himself a local celebrity after the town realizes that his talents include creative hedge trimming and an unrivaled ability to cut hair. His so-called friends are proven fair weather when Edward is accused of a crime, after which his only supporters are Peg and Kim.
Fucking crushed it. Ahmet Kazan, you crushed it. That's so good.
The only thing that they left out was that Edward Scissorhands is portrayed by Johnny Depp, and the inventor is portrayed by the inimitable Vincent Price.
Oh God, I know.
See, this is why you get real people to write
This is why
things.
you get real people, because you want the flavor. You want the
You want
flavor.
that panache. You want that
You want
spice.
the
Yeah.
panache. You want the spice. Okay, so now the other thing that we were starting to do this season, along with reading summaries from either IMDb or LetterBoxd, is also pulling a 5-star review and a 1-star review for this movie from other users.
Yeah.
So here's the 5-star review I pulled from IMDb.
All right.
This is from Joe Estlin BM from
Mhm.
February 17th of 2005.
Great.
The title is As Good as Any Movie Ever Made. This movie impressed me to such an extent that I had trouble sleeping for the first few nights after I saw it, not because he scared me. I just kept thinking about this guy who had scissors for hands and was so unfamiliar with the world. He had a wonderful talent for making things with his unique hands, but he was still confused about the way the world worked. He finally wound up back where he began, which in a macabre sort of way was where he belonged, because his background just wouldn't let him fit into a so-called normal world. The ending was very sad. I'm a relative old man and it made me cry. Watch it! 2 exclamation points. It's probably the best movie you'll ever see.
Oh my god. Fuck yeah, Joe Estlin Bim. Oh my god.
Okay, now
glowing.
glowing.
Joe, this was from 2005. Please tell us how old you are. I want to know.
Please tell us. It's been 20 years since you wrote this review. I want to know, does this movie still keep you up at night because you're just thinking about his hands?
I hope you're not dead, Joe, because I really
hope
want to
you're
know.
alive. Okay, now I would like to. Okay, now I'm gonna read a 1-star review. This is from IMDb. It should be noted, this is the singular 1-star review on IMDb. There is one 1-star review.
I was looking on LetterBoxd for like negative reviews. They don't exist. Like people,
don't
and
exist.
if they do it, there are like a handful of 1 and 2-star reviews, but nobody writes anything when they don't like it. So anyway, yeah, it's hard to find a written out 1 or 2-star review of Edward Scissorhands.
It's very hard. It's very hard to find it. And on IMDb, this has a 7.8 out of 10. So like, by and large, everybody's rating it like 6 and above, pretty much.
Right, exactly.
But I would like to now read you
Educalajero,
maybe?
Educalajero is probably, how you pronounce that.
This is from August 22nd, 2018. The title
Hit
is
us, Edu.
The title is Stop. Just stop. Let's think for a second. What if Ed Scissorhands looks less like Johnny Depp and more like James Gandolfini? Are you sure you would like it as much? What if instead of leather, he wears some blue jeans and a mundane white t-shirt? The character is the same, but now looks like a normal worker. You think you like the movie the same? Of course not! That's all capitals. This movie is 100% dependent on you loving this weirdo. Anything and everything else is ridiculous and quite dumb. Or maybe I'm just not the target for this movie for girls and women that love the pornographic cuteness and, well, Janani Depp. I love both of those reviews so much. I love them so
those
much.
are great finds. Yeah.
Thanks,
It's
man.
always interesting to me how people, when people make that kind of judgment call. It's sort of like, yeah, obviously, if you changed everything about the movie, it would be a different movie.
I know. I was reading it and I was like, yeah, if it
Filmmakers
was,
make choices for reasons.
I know. I was like, yeah, if he was played by James Gandolfini, wore a white t-shirt and blue jeans and didn't have scissors for hands, it would be a very different film.
Oh man, I would
What?
love to see.
I want to see Edu Kayahiro's film treatment for
Totally,
Edward
yeah.
Scissorhands.
No, yeah,
I
let's
want
give
to
him
see
like
it.
we don't need to give him a lot of money, but we could give him like $1 million and get in a couple of
Cut
resources to make
together,
his
cut
trailer for Ed
together,
Scissorhands. Yeah.
cut together a 5 minutes of Ed Scissorhands. Because in my
Yeah.
head, this version of Ed Scissorhands is literally just like a fucking schlubby construction worker that like lives in New Jersey who's like,
Yeah.
hey, come on, you
It's-
wanna my inventor left me with no hands. What am I supposed to do here? I got concrete to pour, I got stuff to do. And he's just
yeah.
like spilling like ketchup down his white shirt because he has scissors for hands, and then like no one gives a shit and everybody's acting like he's
Yeah.
totally normal.
He's just he's got normal hands. He's just super clumsy and cuts people with his fingernails. It's like, Johnny, can't you pick up that single pea from your dinner plate? It's like, hey, shut up! I got my chinos on.
I got my jeans. I got my standard jeans and my standard white t-shirt. What am I supposed to do here? I'm just a blue collar worker guy. Like, what the fuck?
I'm just blue collar Ed with fumbly hand. Blue collar fumbly hand Ed.
That's what it should be retitled. It should be retitled Ed Fumble Hands. And it's James Gandolfini.
Starring James Gandolfini. Oh my god. What an incredible movie. I can't wait. I can't wait to watch it. Edu Kayahiro,
Please.
we're coming for you.
We're coming for you, man. We love it. We love the treatment.
Thank you for your absolute treat of a take. Oh man.
I love it.
We have very real sponsors paying us to make this show now, and we are so excited for their sponsorship and support.
So excited for their sponsorship and support. So we're going to take a quick ad break, and then we are going to dive into our discussion of the film Edward Scissorhands.
Today's episode is brought to you by Stairs. For too long, stairs have been misunderstood. So they brought this ad to set the record straight. These horny little freaks can't wait to get stepped on. That's right. You thought they were functional, but nope, this is their kink. Up or down, they don't care where you're going, as long as they arrive, if you know what I mean. Don't yuck their yum. Strap on some stilettos and give them what they want. Text Stomp on Me Daddy to 784-277 to find available stairs in your area. Thank you, Stairs, for being our first and great promotional people for this. We really appreciate you, Stairs. And
You little
honestly,
freaks.
I get it. You know what I mean? Like,
I got it too. You know what I mean?
commonly misunderstood, but I think that there's a place for all of us in this world, and you too can help Stairs become better.
If at least
Actually,
not better than
they're
more
all
satisfied, I think.
more satisfied. There we go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Satisfy the stairs in your life.
Help these stairs get off on
Please.
your feet.
Please. This
Please.
is a PSA. It's a PSA. We need, please.
Oh man. And we're back. So let's start us off and start a little discussion of this great movie, Edward Scissorhands. Mare, what's your recollection of your very first connections to this movie?
So this is actually interesting. I This movie came out in 1990, the year that I was born,
Yes, it's
and
as old as you are.
it's as old as I am. It is 35 currently, and I have never seen it.
Wow, I'm
Which
surprised.
So here's the interesting thing. When I remember because
Mhm.
when Evan and I were kids, we had a television, but we did not have like
Oh my god.
broadcast
This is exactly the story that
television.
I was gonna tell. Okay,
Is
yes,
it?
let's just both tell this
Okay.
story. Yes,
Okay.
okay, keep
Because
going.
I can't remember what it was on. But anyway, so we did not have like we could watch movies with like a VCR, but we couldn't get like we didn't even get like PBS or anything like that, right?
I feel like we
So
got PBS, but, like, it
no,
was
we didn't.
very
It
really?
That was later when you and I like figured out the rabbit ears on your TV, and we used to watch like PBS and NBC because those were like the two channels that you could just like pick up randomly, and
Oh,
got in a lot of
don't forget
trouble for that.
KCRT or whatever, channel
Yeah,
50, local news.
Channel 50, local news. But anyway, so we Evan and I, when we were kids, would get VHS tapes that our parents' friends would record of like PBS shows and
Yeah,
like
live television.
live television. We would get the
Mhm,
recordings of them, and sometimes they would like physically fast for this is pre TiVo, mid 90s, very low tech. They would sometimes
mhm.
fast forward through the commercials, but sometimes they wouldn't. And the only memory I have of Edward Scissorhands was seeing a trailer for it on one of these VHSs that we
Yeah,
had
me too, yep.
for of like, I don't know,
It was The
Sesame
Simpsons season
Street
1.
Simpsons season 1. Okay, I was like, it
Mhm.
wouldn't have been on PBS. I was like, it must have been on Fox. But anyway,
They also had all those commercials for "You better not lay a finger on my Butterfinger," which was
oh
Bart
my god,
Simpson's thing in the '90s of, like, selling you
yes,
Butterfingers.
selling you Butterfingers. And so that was the piece that I remember from that commercial was the scene when Kevin takes Edward into school to do the show and tell, and he like does uh
Yeah, mhm,
the cut
the
paper.
paper family, yeah,
Yeah,
mhm,
right. But so I knew about Edward Scissorhands. Obviously, the film, I had seen clips of it and pieces, but I
mhm.
realized actually when I literally yesterday when I was like, I started watching the wrong movie and I need to switch and watch
Oops.
uh, Edward Scissorhands for tomorrow, that I had never actually watched it start to finish
Oh,
before.
wow,
So
crazy.
weirdly, even though like I have the kind of cultural awareness, understand this was
Mhm.
actually the first time I had watched it from beginning to end.
Oh, cool, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well we'll get into what we thought of it, but, yeah, my feeling is that sort of like, I mean, I don't honestly remember the first time I watched it, but yeah, same story as you. I very vividly remember like the shot of Edward Scissorhands like finishing up the topiary of the
Yep.
T-Rex
Yes.
and him sort of and like all the kids in the class like reacting to him
And
or
like
whatever. Yeah.
clapping and like yes.
Mhm.
That's like that's one of those like somehow a core memory for me. It's nonsense
Totally.
and it's nonsensically and meaningless, but it's in there
Yes.
forever.
And even though I was, like, a weird kid, I wasn't a weird kid in the, like, macabre hang out in a graveyard kind of way, you know? So, like, I think when I was really
Yeah.
young, I didn't quite get the Tim Burton thing or, like, Nightmare Before Christmas scared me, like, as a child.
Interesting. I think I when I was really like actually getting into Tim Burton stuff was maybe in middle school when I was like 12ish. And that
Mhm.
was kind of the time where I was sort of becoming the weird kid a
Hmm.
little bit, like the
Sure.
weird gothy kid that was sort of like, I don't know, like what if it was dead or whatever? I don't know. I wasn't
Right.
like not like to an extreme extent, but I was starting to get interested in that, and I very much remember being enamored with all Tim Burton films all throughout high school.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
and
very
like,
much kind of like a rite of passage for
oh,
the sort of
absolutely,
gothy, macabre, weirdo kids to be, yeah, at least of our generation, to be obsessed with these
very
Tim Burton
much,
movies because it was
very
definitely kind of
much.
like a cornerstone of like, oh, here's a person that like gets it, you know?
Yeah, like they get me, but it's still
Yeah.
accessible. It's still
Yeah.
accessible in a way that it's not true like horror kind of. I do remember I watched Sleepy Hollow, another Tim Burton film starring Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
I watched Sleepy Hollow I think when it first came out, which was maybe like 97 or 98.
Yeah, we went to go see it in the theater with our father.
We did. Oh, we
I'm almost
did.
positive. I'm almost
Oh, we
positive, yeah.
did. No, we totally did.
Mhm.
It freaked me the fuck out. I was terrified of I was
That movie's
terrified of
great.
Christopher
To
Walken.
me, that's like, did that
I
come out at before or after Big Fish came out after?
after. It was after
Maybe
Big
Big Fish is
Fish.
like the last great Tim Burton film, but like
I
Sleepy Hollow was like at the time started to be feel like this might be the last great Tim Burton movie.
Sleepy Hollow came out in 1999.
Mhm.
And Big Fish, I think, came out in like 2001 or 2000, two thousand
Totally,
three.
yeah.
So I feel like if you're looking at kind of the gothy strangeness of Tim Burton, it like was Ed Wood before Edward Scissorhands?
Yeah, Ed Wood, I think, was midnight. I mean, he was on a roll because, like,
It was just like in the
he did
90s,
like,
Tim Burton was crushing it.
yeah, like I'd have to look this up, but I'm pretty sure that like Pee Wee's Pee Wee's Big Adventure is his
Oh
first
god.
feature film, which is like
Also terrifying. Also
1986 or 7,
terrifying.
right? And then it's like Beetlejuice, Batman, which puts
Yeah.
him on the map, and then Edward Scissorhands, and then shortly after Ed Wood, and that's all within like, I mean, again, I don't
Like a
know the
decade.
actual, but like between 88 and like 93 or 4 or something. It's just like
Okay, wait,
you just
hang
put,
on. Yeah, Ed Wood was 94, so that's after this. Batman Forever 95. James and the Giant Peach 96.
Batman Forever.
Mars Attacks 96. Jesus,
Interesting.
did this
Batman
guy
Forever wasn't directed by him.
No, wait. This
Do you mean
was
Batman Returns? That was 92,
89.
I
Oh yeah,
think.
Batman Returns 92. Jesus, Sleepy Hollow 99. Yeah, this guy just like didn't sleep in the
Nope.
90s.
And he looks like it.
And he looks like it. So let's get back to Edward Scissorhands.
Yes.
What I
Edward
will say
Scissorhands. So
is,
yes.
when you look at this in terms of like Tim Burton was just kind of coming onto the scene with this pretty unique visual language and voice,
Hmm.
as his movies, through the 90s, which would have been when Evan and I were kids,
Hmm.
it was like this sort of accessible gothic aesthetic.
Hmm.
And as I at least in the early 2000s hit middle school, it was like exactly the vibe where it was like, I
Yeah.
can't commit to horror movies because those still like actually scare me.
Yeah.
But like I want some amount of darkness. I want some
Yeah.
amount of like nothing is quite right. And it's like the perfect it is just like in the same
Yeah.
way that I love I'm gonna put myself on record here as just saying I love the goths. I
Big
think they're
fan.
I'm a big fan. You know why? It takes a lot of commitment to wake up every day and put on corpse makeup and a corset and fingerless gloves and then hang out in front of a convenience store or whatever you're going to do that day as your like goth activity, as your like goth based activity. It's a lot of effort and a lot of commitment. And also, they're like so nice. They're so nice. And they'll like
Y-
teach you how to taxidermy stuff. It's fucking awesome.
And you know who the hardest core goths are? The ones in like San Diego, because they're
Dude,
committing to putting on like
they're
full leather
committing
outfits and trench coats and white makeup uh, and hair grease
all of it. It's
in
like
the middle of like the hottest part of California.
it's the goths in Bakersfield, it's the goths in San Diego, it's the goths
Yeah.
in Florida. I
Hmm.
see
Yeah.
you and
Shout out to you guys.
I
Yeah.
appreciate the commitment because like y'all are wearing Doc Martens when it's 95 degrees. Like I
Yep.
hats off. I appreciate and I love you. This is a pro goth
Yeah.
podcast.
Pro goth. Yeah. Um, uh, all right, and just to quickly round out, I honestly don't remember the first time I saw Edward Scissorhands, but like, yeah, late, because I wasn't an immediate convert, but like, I think later on, what's interesting about Tim Burton is quick summary, he grew up in Burbank and always wanted to be a Disney animator, so he was like a fan of Disney while also kind of not liking how very like rosy cheeked it
That's
became, right?
very
So,
interesting. That's
but
very interesting.
he's also the odd kid who like, didn't connect well with people and would go to the graveyard to kind of like be alone and think, so he has this sort of perfect mixture of sort of like Disney, like influence of Disney and like the love of the art of animation and what Walt Disney put out into the world, and this kind of like fascination with like death and the macabre and the gothic and German expressionism in film language, and he sort of mixes those two sensibilities, and that's, I think, where the magic comes in, especially in his early films. It's this mixture of these two seemingly disparate influences that mash very well together.
It's interesting that you say that. I didn't know about him wanting to be a Disney animator, but
He was a Disney animator
it,
for a while, but I think he got
oh,
fired or quit or something.
that makes sense. In my final like thoughts and takeaways, I'm gonna touch on that some more. So that's very interesting. We'll put a pin in that for later.
Totally.
So again, we're kind of reworking the structure of our podcast. And, instead of going through kind of like each of the characters and the story and all of that stuff, we're kind of going to keep it, we're shifting gears. We're going to be a little loosey goosey. And this discussion is basically just going to be a freewheeling discussion. Evan and I are going to talk about, kind of 3 to 5 maybe main things that we want to talk about this
Hmm.
movie. And we'll get into that now. The things that I liked about this film are the things that I just like about Tim Burton's early work in general, right?
Totally.
We've
Yeah.
already right,
Agreed.
like those
Yeah.
are the things that are great. The things, if I was to pick anything that I didn't like particularly love about this movie, I was just sort of like, Tim Burton, if you could learn to write realistic dialogue, I would love it a
Hmm.
lot. Did Tim
Oh,
Burton write this
speaking,
movie? Shouldn't throw him under
he
the bus.
he
I
he,
throw a writer under
he
the bus.
No, he did not write the screenplay. He developed the story with Carolyn Thompson, and Carolyn
Okay.
Thompson wrote the screenplay.
Carolyn Thompson, I'm sorry, love. Um,
Yeah, shout out to Carolyn Thompson. Great job taking this kind of like thing of a really cool like modern day fairy tale, but then weaving it into becoming an actual story that you can tell in a movie,
yeah,
which is not easy to do.
it's not easy. It's not easy. And I would say the only thing that I didn't like about it was some of the slightly like wooden dialogue interactions, especially the dialogue that Winona Ryder is given. I really think that she's so talented. She's such a talented actor. And I'm just like, I know
Yeah.
she was young, but also like, oh my God, come on. So many of her performances were just a little wooden. And I don't think that's necessarily her fault. But anyway,
Yeah,
I,
I think this falls under like, attractive people, even if they're weird looking. One of them is weird looking for makeup, like, falling for each other because
sure.
of that. I mean, the love story is told all in looks, and there's definitely like maybe a little underdevelopment of, yeah, like you say, Winona Ryder's character. It's a little kind of like,
One note, a little.
but yeah, but it's, again, it is also like a fairy tale. I kind of, I'm sort
Yeah,
of like,
that's the
oh,
other thing.
it's a little one dimensional for it to be. Well, I don't know. It's interesting. It's like it's taking this trope that was so common in like 80s, 70s and 80s movies of like
Mm,
the bully, like the shitty guy who has the hot girl who's actually really cool. She's just with the wrong guy, and like the nice
mm,
guy who comes in and like steals her heart away because she
yeah,
realizes that the bully is actually a shitheel, and then the shitty guy goes and like tries to whatever
right.
murder the nice
Yeah,
guy protagonist, like that's
yeah,
a very common trope, and
it
it's
is.
fun to see him play with that in a way that is uh slightly different from the time, but borrowing from a lot of sort of high
Yeah,
school movies that came
and
before it.
I think ultimately, like, any of my criticisms of the film are, like, pretty nitpicky. I think
Yeah,
overall
me too.
it's really fun and it's really just enjoyable to watch. I
Oh
One thing
man,
in
yeah.
particular that I wanna pull out among all of the things is that
Hmm.
so Winona Ryder was 18 years old when this film was made.
Yeah.
In the beginning, again, this is somewhat how it's a fairy tale, right? It opens and closes with grandma tell me a story, and then
Hmm.
it's the final, right? It's Winona Ryder in old lady makeup in the
Hmm.
beginning and the end of the film, which, first of all, makeup department, amazing job. Prosthetics, everything, really top notch. But also, Winona Ryder as an 18-year-old actor, her voice and her body movements are so convincing, and I was just
Yeah.
like, "We gotta give it up." Like, that's incredible. Like,
Yeah.
I'm a Winona Ryder stan, like, ride or die for life.
You ride or die for Winona Ryder.
I ride or die.
Yeah, for
Get it?
Ryder.
Get it? Um,
Yeah,
but
she's
she's just
great.
incredible, and I mean, it would sound like pandering and boring to go through all of the things that I liked about this movie, but let's just suffice it to say I enjoyed it very much.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, yeah, talking about that opening and closing scene is actually a pretty good because I agree. Like, I really like this movie a lot, and anything I have to say is kind of nitpicky. So but yeah, I think talking about the framing device of the old woman telling the story to her grandchild is a great sort of segue into what makes this a revisionist fairy tale, or what
Mhm.
makes this a fairy tale to begin with, because
Sure.
it is the kind of like, let's talk about the little kid. It actually starts with the little girl asking, why does it snow? And the story becomes a parable about why it snows in this town,
Yes,
which is a common
exactly.
trope of fairy tales, like explaining something
Yeah.
about the world
That
that
kind of
to
like
a child.
tell me a story or tell me why this happened.
Hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a classic once upon a time, as you kind of like
Yeah.
go back
They even
into
start
the.
it with once upon a time, like she even starts telling it kind of in that
Mhm.
framing.
Fairy tale manner, yeah.
Yes.
Um, and then I mean, yeah, obviously it's kind of a mix of a bunch of different things because Tim Burton has a very like parable, children's book, fairy tale, folklore kind of sensibility to a lot of the stories that he wants to tell. I think they hit him very deeply because of his influence from Disney, right? And
Mhm.
this has a lot of um, this takes a lot of different things from a bunch of different, fairy tales. It's got, as you pointed out in our outline, sort of like an angry mob of town folks, or like I almost think of Edward as kind of like the princess up in the castle who has to come into town and get
Yeah.
known by the people. Yeah,
Yeah.
very misunderstood protagonist, um, which I think is sort of, an awesome way to frame it. And and it's also like a tragedy, which we
It
kind of
is.
forget
Yeah.
that like a lot of the classic Grimm's fairy tales, because they are um like morality tales, or they're kind of or
Yeah,
maybe
dude.
not even
The
morality tales, but they're kind of
no,
like, "Don't
it's
do this," like,
no, but
they some like, The Little Mermaid originally has a
oh
very,
my
like,
god.
sad ending,
Well, and
she
like
becomes sea foam.
Little Red Riding Hood in the original telling, like, I think, at least, if my memory serves correctly, she, like, tries to, like, seduce the wolf,
Right.
and then,
Damn.
like and it's, like, a whole parable about how, like, don't be a sex worker or something, like,
Right.
they're really fucking dark, and they're, like, really not they're not designed to have happy endings where everybody, like, gets what they want, that's the Disney version, but
Right.
the, like, true, real, quote, unquote, "whatever" versions are, like, pretty upsetting to a modern
Mhm.
audience, but the reason that they're upsetting is because they are and we'll talk about this, I think, more and more as we go through this season, of
Mhm.
basically the strength and the power of fairy tales is not protecting children from the darkness of the world. It's putting the darkness of the world in a context that those children can understand and
Yeah.
kind of have as those morality, ethical lessons for better or worse. There's not I'm not gonna be like, yeah, you should totally let whatever man walks into your life do whatever he wants with you if he finds you sleeping in a fucking crystal cave or whatever the fuck. Like, no, that's bad.
Yeah.
But you know
No,
what I'm
yeah.
saying? It's
They're
it's a
parables, yeah.
they're parables and they're acknowledging that darkness exists in the world and that
Totally.
a
Yeah.
way to prepare children for it is by wrapping it in this form that they can understand and enjoy and you know
Absolutely. It's a way of explaining the world to a kid who is starting to understand that it's more than just the world that exists between them and their immediate nuclear family, right?
yeah, there's a world out there that has a lot of forces in it that you are going to come in contact with. Some of those forces are good and some of those forces are not good, and
Mhm.
you need to be able to have a literacy to understand the differences between them. And I think that's what Edward Scissorhands is kind of getting at, right? You have this protagonist who's very much new to the world. He is like a new being, and he is trying to learn.
He's
Like,
been insulated in a
he's been
world.
insulated, and on the surface, he's the scariest thing. But
Right.
realistically, he's not the scary thing. Other people are the scary thing.
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
and like all of that is kind of the interesting interplay of where this fits into those fairy tale storytelling tropes and
Yeah.
in an interesting and fun way.
Yeah, I'm in kind of like preparation to appear to sound smart for this podcast for this season. I've been listening to the audiobook of The Uses of Enchantment, which
Oh
by
my
Bruno
god.
Bettelheim, which is a which is yeah, it's a book about the meaning and importance of fairy tales, but specifically from the standpoint of like child psychology and what their uses are for kids. And yeah, everything you just said is very much like what the opening, I'm going to be listening to it throughout so you'll probably hear me be like in
I'm
chapter 3 like 4
I
episodes from now.
literally I have it in a shopping cart online right now to buy the audiobook because I'm like, I know that I don't read nonfiction books. I just am not going to do
Yeah.
it. I have to listen to them.
No, I know. Yeah,
But
no,
it's
me too.
really it is something the other audiobook that I listen to that will come up in other films that we talk about this season is called Becoming Baba Yaga, and I'll find the author of
Oh,
that.
cool.
But yeah,
Mhm.
we this is a thing, listener. I don't know if you've realized. Evan and I fucking love fairy tales like a
That we
lot.
do.
A lot,
I
a
mean,
lot.
they are a seminal kind of like experience for young kids to sort of to experience in a way like terror and excitement
Yeah,
and to uh, in a safe way kind of explore the sort of separation anxiety that occurs throughout young adulthood, right? Of
absolutely.
you are
It
going to have to say goodbye to your parents. So like so many that's why so many fairy tales deal with like parents that suddenly die or like don't
Mhm.
want their kids. It's like, whoa,
Yeah,
like it kind of takes these fears and anxieties of a little that little kids would be experiencing and explores them and gives you gives them a framework to work with, to start to understand the harsher things about the world. And yeah, I think that they're
absolutely.
really great because it also usually puts it within the guise of like the supernatural or the odd or
Yeah,
the fae or something like that.
yeah.
So
Chris
yeah,
Chris Spisak is the author of Becoming Baba Yaga, in case anybody wants to check that book out. It's great.
nice.
Um,
So yeah, as we pointed out, Edward Scissorhands clearly has a lot of these tropes, and it's about that kind of anxiety of being connected while still being disconnected, and understanding that people are not always like
they're
what they
sometimes sitting
seem
too.
on the surface. Yeah, and you have to protect yourself, and at the same time, like find love in this world. And
Yeah,
sometimes that's
and
tragic,
connection.
and sometimes it's nice. Yeah. I also wanted to just point out that there's this really great further evidence for this is just that Tim Burton. Years ago, I went to the Tim Burton exhibit, which was sort of touring at a bunch of different museums in New York and LA and a bunch of different San Francisco, probably a bunch of different places. And it's incredible the amount of stuff that he did just like before you even knew who he was. And
It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts.
yeah, it's one of the best sort of like most inspiring exhibits that I have ever been to of like a modern artist. Um, but during before we knew who he was, like after he had sort of like done a stint at Disney as an animator. He was trying to, I guess, make a name for himself doing his own live action stuff. He did this thing for, I think it was PBS, and it was a retelling of Hansel and Gretel, um, that exists. It's
What?
very like public television. It's very like, but he literally like made all of the sets himself.
Okay, I'm gonna find
Animated
time. I'm gonna find
animated
this.
interstitials. Uh-huh.
I'm gonna find this. I'm gonna put notes here of like what to include in our show notes. Because
Mhm.
I want to find this and put it in our show notes.
I know. I wonder if it exists anywhere online or on YouTube. I didn't think to look it up, but yeah,
Okay, keep going.
he
Sorry.
clearly has a kind of uh love and appreciation of fairy tales because I think he recognizes the power and they spoke to him. They spoke to him so much that he like almost killed himself making literally everything for this production. He did the
Mhm.
costumes, the sets, the whatever. It's an incredible feat, and so like
Hey
just more
Evan.
evidence that Tim Burton loves fairy tales.
Hey Evan. If you had knowing what you know, having worked in stop motion and a variety of film sets, if you had to build every single piece of a set yourself, what at what point would your liver fail from alcoholism? Like how many days
uh,
in do you think you would get?
I could last a while, but probably by week two, I would be like, yeah, I'd be failing.
That's so much sooner than I thought it would be. I thought you were gonna be like a month in and you're like, a week two would be rough.
Well, it does depend on the schedule that you're on. Like, yeah, if it was fast turnaround working 20-hour days, maybe day 3.
Yeah, okay, cool. Good to know. Good to know. Continue.
Yeah. So yeah, clearly Tim Burton is a big fan.
He loves the craft. You
of
can
the
tell.
genre and the craft of filmmaking, and yeah, probably almost, yeah, and somehow seemingly had endless energy to make this kind of stuff. Do we wanna talk about some of the incredible
I
filmmaking stuff on
okay,
display here,
I
particularly art department, craftspeople, costumes,
yes,
miniatures? Like, this film
yes.
is rife with incredible filmmaking techniques of
This is
yesteryear.
it really is, and I think if you're a fan of The Nightmare Before Christmas, Corpse Bride, Ed Wood, any of his later stuff, there's so many seeds of all of that that's gonna keep coming back. Cause like, the
Mhm.
initial pan over the town, like, when the grandma is talking and it's, like, going over the town and then up to the thing, I was like, "That's that's a miniature, I think." I think.
Totally, yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
100% that's a miniature.
I was like, "That has to be a miniature," to, like, even just to, like, get that tracking shot up, I was like, "That has to be one set that they built." Um,
They also do
and
this incredible thing for that very opening shot where it's, like, going through the window to
yes.
r it's snowing and rests on old Winona Ryder's back of her head as she looks
Yep,
through the window, and it's like, that is a forced perspective miniature shot for sure.
absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely.
they built a tiny miniature and, like, did a lot of great camera work to make it
Yep.
seem far away, but that's just, like, on the other side of the window, and I just and
Right. It's
same with, like, when you first see Ed's perspective out and you see the little town, like, I'm just like, "Man,
yep.
what a great amount of, visual processing, camera
There's
work, and
that's
miniature work that they put together to make this happen."
That's the thing, cause like, I'm like, in 1990, that has to all be practical. Like, if you wanna do that, it's practical effects. Like, there's not
Yeah, they
the
had
sophisticated. There
we
were at the time, but not they would not look the same now. And to a 2025 viewer, you wouldn't look at it and go like, "I'm pretty sure that that's a miniature, but I'm not totally sure. Like maybe it is, maybe it's not." Like it would be
yeah.
like that's shitty CGI from 35 years ago.
Yeah, Tim Burton being a sort of, his first love being arts,
Yeah,
drawing and sculpting and carving and building stuff is very, like, on display here. Like, he didn't build all of these sets himself, but but the dedication and the love of doing it this way and
yeah,
letting the kind of seams show just a little bit is on display because
it
because it
is.
makes it feel more, children's book like, I think. And
Yeah, it
yeah, there's
does.
just an incredible amount of, like, artistry and craft on display from all the different departments.
Yeah, and
I mean,
so
talk about the hairdos, oh my
oh my
god.
god,
And
the hairdos, like the hairdos are wild and amazing. Like the the set deck just what the production design and set deck went absolutely ham. There are two department heads that I wanted to shout out, particularly because they have been repeat. These are repeats from films we have done in past seasons, which is
Mhm.
Stan Winston,
The god,
who
the
he's
goat.
the absolute goat. His creature shop also was worked on Galaxy Quest, a previous episode of ours. And then Colleen Atwood did the costumes for Edward Scissorhands, but she also did the
Mhm.
costumes for Gattaca. These two people, among everybody that was on this crew, like these two people, Stan Winston and Colleen Atwood, are absolute titans of this industry. They're masters of their craft. They both are like have won multiple Oscars, multiple BAFTAs, Emmys, like
Mhm.
or not Emmys, Critics' Choice Awards, all kind of stuff. These are incredibly talented people. When if you look at their filmography of what they have done, it'll blow your mind. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, they're awesome.
they're so good, and the makeup department went ham. Hairstyles are just absolutely out of pocket.
Yeah. No, I know. Yeah, the costumes, the hairdos, the sort of set deck of just that town. Um,
And everything is like
apparently,
Pepto-Bismol. Like everything is like these
yeah,
like pastel-y, hyper saturated colors. It's great.
I thought for sure that hyper colorful pastel, every house is a different color, perfectly gardened neighborhood had to have been a soundstage that they built out. It's a real place in Florida,
Yes, it
which is
is.
crazy.
Yeah, yes, it is. I thought so. I had the same thought, and I was like, how the fuck? Because, like, what are you gonna do? Go to everybody in a neighborhood and say, hey, can we paint your house a pastel color for a movie set and then pay to have it redone? Or, like,
Right.
build this whole thing on a soundstage? And then I was like, no, that's real. That's
Mhm.
that's real. For sure, for
That's
sure.
so cool that they found that. It's a perfect,
Good
it
job
it
locating
seems like
it out.
yeah, it seems like a thing that they would have yeah, it's 100% seems like a thing that they would have built from scratch, but the fact that it actually existed and they used it, in the film is, yeah, nothing short of amazing that they yeah, way to go locations, you did a great job.
Did an amazing bang up job on that front. Um,
Mhm.
okay. Now I would like to divert us since we're talking art department stuff. I would like to divert us into Mayor's special hyperfocus corner, which was how the fuck did they make the scissor hands
Yeah, what's up with
themselves?
these scissor hands, bruh?
They are a very important part of the film. And the entire movie I was watching, and I was just like, give me a schematic. I don't understand. How do these function? Okay. So I
I
couldn't
wanted to know how the Rube Goldberg device actually worked. I was
oh,
kind of like,
see, interesting.
how are they making these cookies? You know, or like,
Okay,
how does the actual? But no, on a one like they are the scissor hands are like throughout the whole movie
they're
and
the
like a
whole
very important
movie.
part of what makes
It's
Ed different. So they must function in some way and be believable.
it is literally in the title of the film, these
Yeah.
prosthetics. Okay,
Yeah, and it's the
so
type of thing that's like, you could just draw it out and be like, "What an interesting sketch," and just be like, a
cool.
couple of lines, it looks like scissors, and then when it comes to like, "Wait, how does this actually work in a mechanical sense,
Yes,
and how do you put these on a human being's actual hands?" And yeah, it's nuts that they figured out
and
a way
and
to make it
interact with
work.
them.
Yeah.
Okay, so Stan Winston, the amazing prop master, visual artist, and his team, specifically Andy Schoenberg and Dave Grasso, those were kind of the main people that worked on the scissor hands themselves. Um,
Mhm.
so in order to do the pre-production, like getting this ready, they basically purchased every single type of like scissor and garden shear that they could find. Like
Oh,
from
wow.
like places in like all over the US, Canada, England, like all these places that were had these different kinds of blades and these different types
Okay,
of
that's
looks.
cool.
Okay. So then there are a few of the prosthetic prop hands that are actually blades, that are actually like metal real deal blades, and those were primarily
Yee.
there were 2 sets of those made, and those were primarily used in very close-up shots that they had to
Mhm.
actually show the hands snipping something, like, when it was
So there
actually
are versions of these hands that actually function as scissors.
yes, there are
Wow,
2 versions
that's
that
crazy.
actually function as scissors. Primarily, though, what they did was they took apart all of these different types of shears that they found, and they
Mhm.
made resin casts of them, and they made these lightweight, like, polymer resin casts,
Makes sense, yeah.
and then they used a process called vacuum metallization.
Ooh, I've never heard of this.
Would you like to know what vacuum metallization is? Because I did
Of
too.
course.
Vacuum metallizing plastic is a process that allows you to create a layer of metal on a substrate, usually of another material. Also referred to as vacuum deposition, it involves heating the metal coating material until it vaporizes in a vacuum chamber. The lack of pressure in the chamber drives the metal's boiling point downward. This allows the metal vapor to condensate and form a layer over the top of the substrate of your choice. For example, the semiconductor industry uses vacuum deposition to deposit copper interconnects on silicone. The
My
process may
mouth is
use
all the way open. My jaw's on the floor.
The process may use various heating methods, including plasma beams, resistance heating, and electron beams. The end result is a metal layer that can range in thickness from a single atom through to several millimeters. That is from vacuum-metallizing.com. So essentially what they did is
Wow.
they took these resin casts of different types of shears, did this vacuum metallization process on it so that you have an actual metal coating. So it's not just like silver spray paint, it's
That's
actual
100% what I
metal.
would have done. I would just be like, silver
Oh
spray
my God.
paint, but don't.
But but the reason that they did the vacuum metallization process is that that actually bonds the metal to that polymer resin,
Yeah,
and it looks like an actual scissor,
100%.
right?
Yeah.
It
There's going
they
to be
look
close-ups. You have to make it look like,
You
and
have to
especially
make it
like
look
spray
so
paint's going to
real.
scuff. And yeah, there's all kinds of things where it's like they really needed to
Exactly.
look like a real scissor.
Because if you used paint or if you used something else, it would wear off. It would, yeah, exactly. It would show the scuff marks. But by doing this process, they were basically like, well, we have these, it's very lightweight because they're just resin. It's not actual
Hmm.
metal. So it's
Yeah.
very lightweight. So the actor can wear them without like ruining their hands and forearms.
Right.
But even with close-ups, they look like actual metal shears. And then they would go
Wow.
in, and you can find photos of everybody on the production crew, like, actually, like, scuffing them up and, like, making them look different and whatever, because 'cause they've had to obviously make, like, dozens and dozens and dozens of these pairs of hands. And
Yeah.
there's and the other thing that's interesting, so most of the time, it from what I can gather, and again, if somebody has a schematic of how these were built, please send it to me. Brothersibling@gmail.com. I want to know. Essentially, they were gloves that had these, that essentially had these like blades that started on each finger, right?
Hmm.
Like the shaft of the blade started at the finger, and then they had sort of other things that came up over the back of their hand.
Hmm.
And there was some, it seems like there was some amount of like a pulley device to kind of give them tension so that these long blades could be lifted just with your fingers.
Yeah, you can definitely see that there's like uh, metal or some kind of rope type
But
thing that
basically
kind of is
from the
coming off
top
the
of the
back.
hand, from the top
Yeah,
of the hand, right, from the fingers to the top of the hand, down the arm, there's something that acts similarly to how our tendons work in our hands, right, to
right.
retract them. But then in the scenes where there's a lot of up close movement of them and where they actually have to snip things, those were done with the real blade hands and puppeteers who were
Oh,
manipulate, because they were because, like, think about it. If you had a really heavy stainless steel shear on your hand, your ability to move it quickly is limited. So they
yeah.
act for those shots, they had actual puppeteers off screen manipulating the hand. hands
Like a
as
marionette or like a
kind
or like
of
with
like
or with like what's I'm fucking
no, like
forgetting the word for
physically,
it right
like
now.
with like on like with rods attached and things to get because they can do things
Oh, we're talking about close-up
faster.
shots where we okay,
Yes,
gotcha.
we're talking about close-up shots where it's like you have to like snip, 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 and if
Mhm.
you're have an actor who's trying to do that with their hands, it's not going to be as fast because they're very
Right.
heavy because they're actual like metal blades on your hand.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's my Mayor's Hyperfocus corner about the scissor hands. It was so interesting, and I really just like uh,
That
as
is
we
fascinating.
as we have said like 1,000 times on this podcast, always hats off to like makeup, props, art departments because it was even a thing that that Tim Burton just in his sketch it's like lines and it kind of looks
Mhm.
like plates. And he even was like, I don't know if that's going to be feasible to do. Like, we'll figure out something. And Stan Winston and his whole crew were like, guess what? We're the best in the fucking business. They're actual scissors. Like,
Yeah,
they're
check this
like,
out.
check this shit out. They're actual scissors for hands. Fuck you. Dunk on it. Like, ready to go. Like, they just totally brought it to life and like made this whole thing that it like I said, it's in the title of the movie. They're very important.
Yeah.
And it's so awesome to see like so many talented model makers and builders and just creative people came together to be like, yeah, we can do that. We can make it look really believable and like really good in close-up shots, like tracking shots, whatever, like
Mhm.
nailing it. It's awesome. Good job, everybody.
Yeah, I think that the for the very creative people who, honed their craft in Hollywood and did their stint on, all the amazing movies that they'd worked on before, I think that I mean, I don't know for sure. I don't have like, any even anecdotes, but it seems like at this time and it's all, I think Tim Burton was probably also a little bit of a dictator as many directors
Sure.
are. But I think that the story and the visual like flair and just the sheer inventiveness of what Tim Burton and his team wanted to bring to life at this time, I can only imagine that for the people who got it, it must have been so inspiring to be like, "Oh man, like, yeah, let's really push how to make this hair look crazy and fun, but like
Yeah.
let's really push like what the leather and the buckles look like on this suit. Let's really figure out how to make these scenes of like the shrubs and the hair like flying in front of Ed's face like look cartoonish but also real, like it
It's
seems like it really inspired the craftspeople to kind of like bring their A game because they're like, oh, this is unique and different and is if
yeah.
we pull it off it's going to be so different than anything that has sort of been on film before, and it speaks to that childlike wonder of making stuff and creating something out of nothing, it must
Yeah,
have
and
been
it's
something else for people who worked on it.
absolutely and even Colleen Atwood was like, yeah, I didn't want, Edward's mm, like kind of leather suit. Like I didn't want it to feel time specific. I
Hmm.
didn't want it to feel one thing or the other. It just I wanted it to feel like what he wore. Like that was just what he wore.
Right.
And it's
Almost as if it's his
yeah.
body or something.
Yeah, it's kind of like his second skin in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
but yeah, I think in the way that people who are in that director role or whatever, who are kind of Looney Tunes a little bit and are a little dictatorial,
Yeah.
there is an aspect to that it does push people to be better. I'm not saying it's
Mhm.
right or wrong, but there is an amount of that like it pushes you to be better if you have someone who is always demanding your best,
Yeah, totally.
for better or
It's true.
worse.
I
Um,
know.
yeah, I have to pee really badly.
I got my coffee, I got my water. I went to the bathroom, and I am ready to keep talking about Edward Scissorhands.
Hang on.
The man, the man, the myth, the legend, the fairy tale hero. Once upon a time, there was a man with scissors for hands.
Hang on. I'm doing my favorite thing in canceling plans. Via text. It sucks, but also
Does it get any better than canceling plans?
it doesn't. I'm just so tired. I woke up at 8 a.m. I woke up at 7 a.m. today to go work with. Before I did all that bullshit in my garden, I went to the master gardener's garden, and I
Hmm.
got into the bee hives and did a bunch of shit in the beehives, and like
Okay.
you have to like fully suit up and do this whole thing, which is basically just putting on a sweatsuit
Hmm.
and then like lighting shit on fire to like get the smoker, and then being like, I hope fucking bees don't sting me, and like checking hive health I'm exhausted. I'm very
So
tired.
you've done a lot today.
I've done a lot of shit today, and I would like to sleep. Also, I have a semi pinched nerve in left my left sciatic nerve is sort of
Ooh.
impacted and pinched right now, and
Ooh. I'm
I got
sorry.
a chiropractic adjustment on Saturday, and like as in yesterday morning, and I am quite tired. So
Yeah, you should rest.
I was
You need to take an adult nap.
I took an adult nap yesterday for 5 hours.
That's not a nap. That's called going to sleep.
I went to sleep at 2:30 and I set an
Nope.
alarm.
Once it was longer than 40 minutes, it's no longer a nap.
Okay, I went to sleep at 2:30 yesterday in the afternoon,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and I set an alarm for 4. I was like, hour and a half. I'm gonna like get up. I have a bunch of shit to do for the podcast, some
Yeah.
other stuff, whatever. I woke up at 7:30 and flipped my
And you're like,
shit.
well, guess it's time to go back to bed.
No, I flipped shit because I thought I had slept. I saw 7:30 and I was like, "Fuck, I have to be somewhere at 8," as in
Oh,
this
because your room
morning,
is so, yeah, you have like,
because my room is super dark. Because I
yeah,
had,
so
like,
you're just like, I have no sense of time or place in here.
no, and I was like, "Fuck, like, oh my god, like, blah, blah, blah." And then I was like, "No, it's 7:30 PM on Saturday."
Oh my
I'm
God.
doing
Um,
great. Let's
yeah.
continue.
So I wanted to talk briefly just about how this movie is a statement about making art, and maybe specifically how it kind of conforms to a sort of autobiographical kind of sense of where Tim Burton was this time in his career. I think this could be kind of interesting to have a short freewheeling discussion of, because it'll probably be the only spot in this where we actually kind of pontificate about the story and stuff more than
Let's
we've
go.
already.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my take is that this is like the more I watched it, and I allowed myself to just kind of take it in and like not force myself to take notes and let the
Me
impressions
too.
come
Me
on
too.
me. Yeah, it was nice. But you really get how this it feels like, because the whole story is about, a kind Avon lady taking this sort of odd weirdo in, and he's got these things that would make him scary to other people. But the thing that makes him scary is also the thing that gives him the ability to create and create things that
Mhm.
people love, right? Like the topiary gardens and hedges and the hairdos and trimming your dog's hair and stuff like that. Like, the thing that makes you weird and different is also the thing that makes you quote unquote an
Mm.
artistic genius, or it's the thing that gives you your power. But of course, like through the course of the film, and it's done with these great sight gags and these great
Oh God, it's
characterizations of
so
all these
funny.
like crazy, like, ladies who are various stages of gossipy or horny or whatever in the
Oh,
town.
so horny.
Yeah, oh my god. Is Joyce the character's name?
Joyce.
Uh,
I literally
Joy
I took
She's great.
very I took very just quick notes, like a couple little just like 1.5 pages of handwritten dashed out notes. And I did take the time to write, Joyce is a fucking freak. Why is she so horny? Is she straight up doing an assault? She's so horny.
It's so good. But I love her character in particular because I think it speaks to, like, the something that I'm sure Tim Burton started to come in contact with, which was like this, like, nobody likes you when you're not on the map, and then
Yeah,
suddenly everybody's fawning over you, and you're like, they're almost like fetishizing this thing that it makes you you, right? They're kind of like,
yeah.
oh my god, so cool how different you are. And Edward Scissorhands in those moments is just like, I was just being me. I do have a kind of like natural talent for something that I don't understand. It's also like the only thing he can really do that is good. And it's unfortunate that, like, that is the parable of like society and the artist, right? It's like the
Yeah.
thing that makes you so different is the thing that brings you acclaim, but also to do it you have to be different. They kind of state this explicitly when he's on the
Yeah.
talk show, right? They're sort of like, "Would you like hands? Would you like to be like everybody else?" Like, "Yeah, I'd love that." It's like, "But then you'd be like everybody else." And he's like, he's always going to be special. But of course, the thing that makes you special also kind of makes you dangerous in the eyes of other people,
And
Like
that's
people like difference when it is convenient for them. They don't like
yeah.
difference when it's scary.
Yeah, and it's I think the other thing that I was getting out of this as well, is that Edward is he starts just kind of, doing topiary because he's like, this is a thing that I like and I can do it. And
And also importantly, because he sees Alan Arkin's character, the
well,
dad, doing it, and he's like, "Oh, this is a thing that maybe I
oh,
can do
like
to feel included." Like, I
yeah,
want to
like
be part of this family. I want to be useful.
yeah, like, oh, you're doing this and you're not, and you're doing it one way, but like, hey, I can also help and I can also do this thing. And Alan Arkin's character is such a PS hilarious and very
Oh
funny.
my God! Shout out to Alan Arkin and Diane Weist as the
Nailing
parents.
it.
They're
Nailing it.
perfect. Yeah.
Because what's interesting about Alan Arkin's character to me is that he is the personification of monetize your hobbies, right?
Totally,
He's the
100%. Yeah.
personification of like,
And
well,
not in a mean consumerist way, just in
no.
like a practical dad kind of way, like, "You gotta make a living in this world. Hup, hup, hup."
Yeah. But it also is, he's like, yeah, like you have to like, go to the bank and get a loan and start a business and be very
Yeah.
practical and da da da. And that's also kind of the same thing that happens when you are an artist.
Mhm.
You do the thing and you make the you make your art and
Mhm.
you put yourself in the world out there
Mhm.
because it's what you love doing and because it's part of who you are.
Yeah.
And then all of these outside forces come in and are like, want something from you, you have to monetize
Yeah.
this, like
They have to
have
you have to monetize it. You have to some people sexualize it sometimes that,
yeah,
fetishize it or whatever,
you
or
have
they wanna know what they can get out of it, and they wanna be close to you because, like, "Oh, you're special. I can be your friend and get the
you're
clout because of that," you
interesting.
know?
Yeah, and
Mhm.
it is an interesting, again, in that kind of parable sense of what happens when artists find success, and I think that because Edward is this sort of very unassuming, kind, and genuinely sweet person,
Mhm.
he's not seeing any of that as exploitative. He's seeing as like, oh, these people are trying to help, and I guess this is how we help. Like there's that scene at the dinner table where Alan Arkin is, kind of trying to explain quote
Right and
unquote
wrong.
right and wrong. And it's like when you
Mhm.
find a suitcase of money, like you keep it for yourself, you buy your friends and family and loved ones like presents, you
Mhm.
give it to charity or you give it to the police.
Right.
And Edward's answer is, I use it for my friends and family,
Right. People I
which
love.
people I love, because it's like that is ultimately his driver of like,
Mhm.
I wanna take care of the people that I love,
Yeah.
even if that isn't like quote unquote like black and white, right and wrong.
Mhm.
Um, and it is a through line of, like if you're an artist, if you're a creative person, your drive is to like do the thing that you love.
Yeah, you wanna connect with people,
You
right?
wanna connect with people. You're putting your art out there to be like, might be different or this might be strange, but I'm putting it out there as a sort of beacon so that I can find
Totally.
my people who are
Yeah.
drawn to the thing that I am doing, right?
Yeah. And
Uh, yeah, it's
I also
great
think it's
in that
yeah,
way.
there's 2 things I also wanted to talk about in that regard. It's like, I really love the how it is e his father, the inventor, played by Vincent Price, like,
Vincent
he
Price,
does it he creates Edward kind of out of maybe loneliness, but love. I mean, the
love,
visual
I
that you
think.
see of him is sort of like he he is a creative person, like, he's making these machines to do whatever, these Rube Goldberg devices to make
Yeah.
cookies because he whatever, is alone and does his thing and is whatever, but, like, the visual is you watch him taking like a heart-shaped cookie and putting it on top of a robot. You're like, oh, like he wants to create something that is actually meaningful.
And
He wants to create something that can love. And I think
he's
that is, and the fact that that's where Edward comes from has a lot to do with his character.
and it you even see, because I feel like in so many of the like, oh, and this inventor created this crazy, thing, and it was about ego or about world
Hmm.
domination or whatever. But you see the inventor reading from like social etiquette things and
Right.
fairy tales to be like, you have to be a functioning member of society, Edward.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you have to understand like all of these things. Like, again, I think it's true. He is the inventor created Edward from a place of love and from a place
Hmm.
of, wouldn't it be amazing if I could have this being that I have
Yeah.
imbued with all of the best parts of humanity,
Hmm. Yeah.
but also maybe
And
like start with the hands next time.
right. Maybe don't give him scissors for hands.
Just like,
If you're being like logical about
what
it,
if like
maybe.
you started with like hands and then got to the rest of him? That would be
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Um the continuation of that scene is an interesting insight too, because like he's teaching him etiquette, but then he does the kind of like fun dad thing of like, I'm supposed to teach you this. That's kind of boring though, isn't it? And then he's like reads from
Yeah.
poetry, and it's like, oh, like what a sweet statement about like there are things you need to know in this world, but there is like joy and gaiety as well, and that's the point of being
Yes.
around. It's like,
Yeah.
let's share the fun things. Let's share a fun rhyming uh limerick, like
Yeah.
that is where he comes from. And I also think it's really interesting in the way that like the the aesthetics of the film are uh not just they look cool, but it's more than that too, right? Like Edward comes from a black and white, like he is simple and naive,
Yeah.
and comes into a world of color. And partially he's experiencing this new world of color, and you're supposed to see it through his eyes and see how colorful it is. But also he does have a very simple, quote unquote, black and white kind of understanding of the world, where he's like, why, like, I don't get what all of these other people with all of their various shades are trying to impart on me. All I know is that I love these people that took me in, and this
Yeah.
one young woman who I feel like, can hopefully uh return my affections.
Yeah. Like I feel
And it's
connected.
yeah. And it's a
With.
sad, and like and of course, the being a statement about art, it is, you know, sad and tragic that like the way it ends is exactly that. Like the townsfolk, the as soon as the creation, or as soon as they see Ed as like a menace through no fault of his own,
Yeah.
and because of other people that he's, keeping secrets for, like they turn him into a monster, i.e., they are the monster.
They
And
are the
it
monster
turns out
ultimately.
that it turns out that he's not, by the tragedy of like what he is and how he can't have his hands like be like a normal person, he must be sequestered. And yet,
Yeah.
because of that, and because he gives up the love of I already
Kim.
forgot her name, but
Kim.
Kim, thank you.
Winona
Because he
Ryder's
gives up the
character.
Kim, and and the bully comes and tries to shoot him.
Fuck
Classic
Jim.
80s
Fuck
stuff.
Jim so hard. Fuck. He is
Such a
the
psycho.
worst.
What's up?
He is
What's
an
up with these psychos?
absolute, absolute unhinged lunatic, and I'm happy that Edward
Yeah.
kills him. Keep going.
Me too. He's crazy. But yeah, like, so while it is sad that it's bittersweet, right? While it's sad that the social system he's in is such that they can't accept him for the kind of beautiful and slightly flawed or different maybe creature that he is, he does he still creates something beautiful for the town, because this
Yeah.
is a parable about how snow comes to the town, like
He
how
makes
the
ice
snow is made.
sculptures. He makes ice
Yeah.
sculptures, and
Yeah.
that is what creates
And
the
his
snow.
frenetic, yes,
Yeah, whatever.
I'm not gonna
Creates
call it scissoring. His
his
frenetic cutting,
his frenetic.
shearing.
We could say it. His frenetic scissoring. Yeah, is
Ed's
that?
frenetic scissoring brings the snow. It's a snow job, you know what I'm saying? A.
I can't.
I think that's as good a place to end that
That's as good
beautiful
a place to
discussion of the
end
meaning of
it
art.
as we're gonna get is Ed's
Yeah.
frenetic scissoring of a snow job.
uh, uh,
You know what? Let's cut
uh,
it. Let's cut it to another ad break of a very real sponsor.
I think it's about time. Yes. We'll be right back after these short messages from our very real sponsor.
This week's podcast is sponsored by Dirt, the world's leading brand of earth. Many people go outside and look up at a beautiful sunny sky or the trees bending in the wind, totally unaware that the most beautiful natural wonder is right beneath their feet. Since approximately 2 million BC, dirt has been mankind's unsung hero. Whether it's a solid surface for you and your friends to hike on, or just something for your stupid dog to roll around in and ruin your day, Dirt gets it. This week, Dirt has a special offer for listeners of the pod. They're offering free Dirt for a limited time only. Just go to dirt.com, enter promo code BROTHERSIBLING, turn off your electronic device, walk outside and bend over and pick up a big old clump of it. It's literally right there. Free dirt. So go get your free clump of dirt today while supplies last, because it never hurts to get your hands in the dirt. TM. Disclaimer. Dirt is not associated from a scientific perspective with soil. Dirt's overambitious cousin substance. Any association with soil, the dirt-like matter that provides nutrients for the global ecosystem of microorganisms and plant materials, purely coincidental at surface level.
Dirt. Come and get it.
I feel like that's a particular fucking I feel attacked.
Attacked? I would hope you would feel seen.
I do, you know what? I do feel seen because you know why I feel seen in that ad?
Why?
Is because you made a differentiation. Dirt is not the same as soil. Thank you.
Correct.
It's not the same because soil is nutrient rich and is wonderful. And dirt is just fucking everywhere. Dirt is fucking dirt. It's everywhere.
See, I knew I had to write from the perspective of dirt to reclaim its honor and let the people know why dirt deserves love too.
Dirt also deserves love because it's fucking there.
Yeah,
so
because it's around and
it's around. Similar,
you can't get rid of it.
Yeah, similar to stairs. They're just there being little horny freaks in your house. You know? And dirt is just
horny
around
freak stairs
existing. And these are the kind of sponsorships that we love to have on Brother Sibling Movie. They're important. They're important to us, and they're very real dollars that they give us for these very real ads.
That's right.
Important.
So if you are a kinky man-made construction item or an odd piece of the earth that's been around for way past its welcome,
literally millennia,
we would love your sponsorship.
We would love your sponsors. Wait, can I also say I had a whole pitch for stairs that was about like being beloved by doctors and elevators engulfed in flames. And how they were actually the ones that wanted to promote stairs. Like, doctors wanted to promote stairs, and then, like, specifically only elevators that are currently engulfed in flames wanted to promote stairs. That was my, like, B pitch for the stairs.
I kind of like that. I kind of like that take, too, yeah. I think there's robust subject matter to take in with stairs.
You know what?
And
we may have many promos about stairs because I think
true.
they're multifaceted.
Yeah. Does Conan do just one ad read for Airbnb? Hell no.
No, there's multiple. There's multiple. Mm-hmm. There could be one.
They keep coming back.
They keep coming back, but then the reason that I didn't do the elevators engulfed in flames as the people that were trying to sponsor, like, that were promoting stairs, is because I did not want to look up and do a deep dive onto when elevators were invented, because I had this whole thing. And sponsored by Elevators Engulfed, who, you know, they've been sponsoring stairs. Elevators Engulfed in Flames have been sponsoring stairs since blah blah blah. And I was like, I know that I'm gonna go down a deep rabbit hole of, like, the invention of elevators.
I tried really hard to keep my rabbit hole Google search of
I loved it.
How old is dirt to a minimum. So
I mean, there is that expression, as old as dirt. So,
and there's a great thread on Ask Science where a person gives an entire, like, 20 paragraph answer to how old is dirt actually, and makes a distinction between, well, depends on what kind of dirt you're talking
If
about. And anyway, I'll send it to
you
you.
want to send that to me, I would love to read it. So yeah, we'll probably have repeat sponsorships from both Dirt and Stairs.
Here's hoping. I've got my fingers crossed.
I've got my fingers crossed because I think we've nailed those ad reads. All right, so now we are going to do final thoughts and takeaways. Evan, kick us off.
Yeah, here's my prepared statement. My final thoughts and takeaways about Edward
We have
Scissorhands.
readied, prepared statements.
Indeed, yes. Mixing elements from Beauty and the Beast, Cinderella, and Frankenstein, to name a few, Tim Burton crafts a timeless fairy tale in a colorful pseudo-American suburb. The mixture of German expressionist spookiness with the chintzy, uber-colorful suburbs seems like things that shouldn't go well together. And yet, they provide a perfect contrast to the world as experienced through the wonder and simplicity of Edward Scissorhands' eyes. The movie is a testament to the artistic spirit, not just in its lush atmosphere and the incredible job done by every department that brought Tim Burton's dreams and drawings to life, but also in the story itself. No doubt a thinly veiled metaphor for Tim Burton's own experience, a strange loner whose abilities are coveted, even fetishized by his community, and ultimately commodified and vilified when his talents can't be properly contained. Burton was at the height of his artistic expression in the late 80s and early 90s, and it would be hard not to call this film his masterpiece. Cartoonish sight gags mingle with heartfelt moments and a timeless purity that anyone who has ever felt like an outsider can immediately identify with. When I think of this movie, I think of the time that I went to go see the Tim Burton exhibit at LACMA, where my already outsized admiration for the man grew even deeper. Standing in front of the Scissorhands costume felt like a revelation. For whatever Burton has become now, a faint echo of his former self, his early works stand as a triumphant statement about what the human imagination and real people's hard-working hands can make. No film better exemplifies the love of magic and the tragedy of the misunderstood better than Edward Scissorhands.
Nicely done. I think we're going to have a few similar takeaways. Here's my final
Uh-huh.
thoughts and takeaways in a prepared
Let's do it.
statement read by the author. In 2025, it's pretty easy to write off Tim Burton as a one-note director with an impressive array of stylistic crutches. But here's the thing. When you take it back to his early work, you realize why Tim Burton is a once-in-a-generation artistic voice. Edward Scissorhands exemplifies why Burton's work is beloved. The tone oscillates delightfully between gothic horror and bubblegum frivolity. The visual language can only come from Burton, as if the pages of his preteen sketchbooks have come to life to both tantalize and to terrify us. As the audience, we can't help but fall in love with Edward, his unsettling outward appearance hiding a soft, tender-hearted soul who just wants to find love and connection. Through the lens of Edward, we are challenged to think about our own preconception, biases, and assumptions. Do you look at the exterior or the interior of a person to make value judgments? Do you want safety at any cost, even if it means operating off of incomplete information? Are those who are different from you only valuable if they prescribe to your version of normal and are not true to themselves? It's clear that Burton is a student of fairy tales, gleaning the importance of wrapping moral lessons in pastel colors and ambrosia salad. And Edward Scissorhands is just that, a fairy tale for modern times, ready and waiting for the next generation to discover it.
Well said. I couldn't have put it better.
Also well said too. Also well said too. Also well said too.
Golf clap. Golf clap.
Golf clap, golf clap. We are smart and intelligent people who are things.
As our mother once said, "Oh my God, I raised intellectuals."
Marta.
That's putting it mildly. I
Marta,
wouldn't
you sent
deign
us
to call myself an intellectual.
You
but
sent us to college so that we could
Right.
make intellectual dick jokes.
That's right.
That's
What more do you want from
what
us?
more do you want from us, Marta? We love you. All right. Well, that sounds like it's time for the most intellectual part of the podcast, which is the
Tambok na siksi. Tambok na siksi.
vibe check. It's time for a vibe check.
Vibe check.
For those of you who may be listening for the very first time, first of all, thank you so much. We're so happy to have you. And also,
Welcome.
Evan and I do not rate films on a star system or a number system. We rate a film on two things and two things only, and that is how are the story and how are the vibes. Both are highly subjective. Both are entirely immutable and true. Evan.
Our opinion is concrete and everlasting.
Our opinion is fact. Evan, how is the story? How are the vibes?
Man, great story. Obviously, I love a good fairy tale, and nobody sort of captures the wonder of a fairy tale through sort of the macabre, the way that Tim Burton does. So, like I said, this is him at the height of his powers. And how are the vibes, man? Solid, good vibes. Love the vibes all the way through.
Yeah, I would say the story is I think the story is perfect for what it is.
Exactly.
It's perfect. Are there plot holes? Yes. Are there logical inconsistencies? Yes. If you're looking
Does
at
it conform to Edukaya Harrow's ideas of what it would be like if James Gandolfini wore white shirt and a blue jeans to make this movie?
It doesn't.
No.
It doesn't. It just doesn't. And that's okay. I think that the story is great in the perspective of this is a fairy tale, and fairy tales have those sort of weird logical fallacies or whatever. I think it's
Absolutely.
perfect. I think it's perfect for what it's trying to be. Vibes, top tier vibes, in my opinion. This movie isn't all vibes, but it's pretty close. It's 85 to 90% vibes.
Yeah. It's perfect for the person who wants to vibe out being a quiet weirdo, enjoying the play of humanity that they witness all around them all the time.
And that is a vibe I'm here for. That's just sort of a general vibe I'm always down with.
Pasty weirdo with dangerous sheer hands vibes.
Yeah, I am a pasty weirdo, and I don't have scissors for a hand, but I regularly hurt myself. Same, in my opinion.
You are the Edward Scissorhand of your generation.
I mean, I'm Mayor Router hands for what I did a few years ago.
There you go. Yeah. Oh my God. If you just walked around with a router and garden shears as your two hands, yeah, it's very Bruce Campbell Army of Darkness, chainsaw arm situation going on.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. That's where I'm at in my life, I think.
I feel seen.
Most people are don't give them sharp things. It will only lead to badness, which is fair.
Yes.
Anyway, well, awesome. Thank you so much for joining us for season 1, episode 22, season 1. No, wait.
Season 3?
The first episode of season 3.
There we go.
Episode 22 of the...
That's right.
There it is. Thank you for joining us. We can't wait to get into more revisionist fairy tales with you.
There's so much to dig into, so many so many themes of growing up and wonderment, and the role that the supernatural and magic play in our lives,
It's gonna
and
be
how
great.
different filmmakers have interpreted it throughout the ages. So I'm
It's
really looking forward to talking about these more with you.
me too. If you would like to follow us on things, we have Instagram, which is at Brother Sibling Movie. We have
That's us.
YouTube, which is at Brother Sibling Movie. You can
Oh
email
yeah.
us your thoughts, takeaways, opinions. What should our next season be? I don't know. Email us, brothersibling@gmail.com. If
Blueprints of the Edward Scissorhands hands.
literally, I'm not even joking. I want the actual like schematic. How do they work? I'm
Yeah.
so fascinated, and I have a version in my head of how the schematics would work if I built it, but I
Yeah.
would like to know how they were actually built so that we can compare notes. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah.
Evan, where can the good people find you?
The good people can find me on all the socials as Art of Evan K. That's Instagram, Facebook page, and website, artofevank.com. Come and check out my work, and love to work with you and show you what I got.
Hire Evan. He's
Mayor,
amazing.
where can the good people find you, Mayor Morgan?
The good people can find me just sort of around. I feel like I'm
Just
a vibe.
wandering the earth.
I feel like I'm kind of a vibe, that I sort of exist in like all manners and all times. But if
Hmm.
you wanted to
You
like
are timeless.
I am, and if you wanted to like nail it down, you could find me on Instagram at lawn_daddy_lives_here. Lawn daddy lives here underscore between each of the words. Um, you I'm the only one that checks our social media and our email, so that's another great way to find us, your brother sibling movie.
That's right.
And again, just in general, like I don't know, like leave out like a silver coin and and like a crystal, and I might show up. That I can
Ooh.
be here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
I can be a
Howl
fake
like a wolf
ranger.
outside your window, and Mare
Do
will
it.
show up.
Do it.
Mhm.
I mean, I might show up, I might not. Sometimes I'm quite tired. So sometimes I will, and sometimes I'll hear it and be like, "You're fine. You deal with it
Yes.
yourself."
I'm a tired napping fairy.
I am so tired and I nap so much. I need so much rest. You know what I'm really like? I'm more like a Totoro than anything else because I just sort of nap
There you
most.
go. I
Like
think,
the
yeah.
default is I'm napping.
Yeah, sleeping in a tree, yeah.
I'm sleeping in a tree. And then sometimes when you really need me and it's like important and critical and like your little sister is missing, I'll be like, I got you, boo. Let me do this. Let's
Yeah.
go.
Let me bring my big old friend Cat Bus around to help you out.
Yeah, Cat Bus and I are tight. So it's like not a big deal, but it's pretty cool.
Well, it's been a delight talking with you about Edward Scissorhands.
What
Let's
is
do
the
it again next week.
Well, we won't talk about Edward Scissorhands next week, but we'll talk about a different film.
Sure. Thank you for pointing out my grammar error.
I have so few jobs on this podcast. It's the only one that I can cling to.
Yeah.
All right, I love you so much. Hey, guess what, Evan? You know what I'm going to leave the listeners with?
Telly.
Go watch a movie with your sibling.
Go watch a movie with your sibling.
No, you. You go watch a movie with your sibling. I dare you.
You first, double times infinity.
I fucking dare you, double dog. Times infinity +1. All right, I love you.
I love you too, Sibs. Take it easy.
Bye.
See you next week.